Item number 11 is a proposal from the Covington Institute. Tom, I guess you're going to handle that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's a three-page proposal before you for facilitators for the solid waste landfill citizen committee that's ongoing. First meeting tomorrow night. The facilitators, if the board chooses to proceed in that direction, wouldn't be present tomorrow night, but their scope of work is outlined in that memo. It includes 4 meetings, 2 facilitators. The facilitators are Langford Holbrook with the Carl Vinson Institute of Government, and he has also suggested we bring in Ray Rawls, who is actually with a different institute. I believe it's the Fannin Institute, if I'm not mistaken, with the university. They lay out the scope of work, and I believe in the last meeting there was some clarification given to the questions, the topics to be addressed by the Citizens Committee. So some of that's in the memo that you see there, sort of a request for clarification on that. This was being developed kind of at the same time that meeting was taking place, so they left some of that wording in there. So the chairman and I met with Langford Holbrook probably 3 or 4 weeks ago now to discuss this, and as he was preparing this proposal for your consideration. So if y'all have any questions, if I can answer them, I'll try to.
Before we take any questions, I wanted to mention too at ACCG this past week, Langford did the class, and I tell you, he's absolutely fabulous. Way too much energy for me, but he had a lot of caffeine that day apparently. And if anybody can do it, I don't know the person from Fannin, but this guy is really, I don't know if he's Einstein or whether he's Mark Twain, or maybe he's a mix of the two. When you see him, you'll know what I'm talking about. So I have very good confidence. I know it is an expenditure of $12,500, but the citizens that are here, that live out near the Spring Hill community, are going to appreciate the fact that he's going to give a fair opportunity for people to participate that are in that committee. So I'm going to say that I highly recommend him. And are there any questions from Commissioner Schultz?
So I have a high regard for the Carl Vinson Institute, and I have had a class with Langford in the past, and I have a high regard for them. But I guess my question is, what is going to be the total budget for this committee to do what they need to do to get the information that they need? Are they going to be able to bring in additional consultants, and what is that cost going to be? Are we going to set a ceiling, or are we just going to give them basically whatever they need, we'll give them? So I think that we have to look at this particular proposal in the context of what's going to be the total budget for that committee to operate and get the information that they need to make the decisions that we have charged them with.
I think Commissioner Schultz raises a good question, because there's actually members of the panel, or at least one member of the panel, that is already asking for professional services to be provided from a current county contractor. So that's a very good question. Does the committee members have that authority? I certainly think we've approved the committee. We need to support them. There were questions today on if the committee was actually meeting tomorrow night. Clearly they're meeting at 6 in the admin.
Without the facilitator tomorrow. Without the facilitator.
Yes, sir. So, thank you.
Commissioner Henderson.
I guess the question I'm asking is that I thought that was what this board wanted to meet, because the question I had posed that when we started talking about this was have a up or down vote. Is either voted up or voted down. And that wouldn't cost anything other than the fact that we voted. So now we're doing exactly what I think Commissioner Schultz we can save it. I still say, let's go up and down. You know, so, I mean, why would we want to put ourselves through this? We can save the money. Still go up and down low. So, but I do know the gentleman. We had a class, Mr. Chairman, we were together, and he was very excellent. You know, he made the day go by fast. We came in about 8:30, and we left about 2:30. And I was very thankful. And we had it was a very good class. He was a very good, he had a very good presentation. So he's going to be good.
This gentleman works for ACCG for
Covington. Did you have a comment before? Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I guess this question is, I guess, for the chairman of that committee, Mr. Garrett. Last time we talked, we were trying to make sure this committee had a vision, a goal. What were they trying to accomplish in this committee? Because as I stated before, solid waste is just a wide open topic, and you know, if we're talking about, you know, consultants and everything, I think they just, I don't know if you've come up with that goal for that committee, but I'd like to know. Thank you.
I'll make a comment that Ms. Schultz has discussed two different questions for that committee, and then I'm going to go ahead and expose executive session. At one time, we discussed an executive session and looking at the contract, and I thought at that time it was a consensus of the board to look at the contract that had been placed on the table. And so I found back in my notes that the two questions did not really, as I stated before, related to the EPD requirements. It does not address those, and it also does not address the legal questions concerning the lawsuit. So I think this board also needs to make that decision tonight in open session so that the members of that panel have the greatest success of being able to bring back to us some recommendations. Again, it is a very noble thought that we're involving our citizens in our decision making. We must enable them in some way to be able to give them the tools that they need. And it's my opinion, if they need I believe it's Smith Gardner Engineering, that we ought to authorize, if they do need some questions answered, for Smith Gardner to provide those answers. They are the people who are experts. And our panel, of course, with the exception of a couple of people, necessarily aren't experts, although they have lived in that area all their lives. I'm sure they would love to have the opportunity to hear from Smith Gardner as well as others. So that's the two decisions I'd like to make tonight, in addition to approving the $12,500. So, Commissioners, I'd like your views on that. Commissioner Schultz.
Well, I think Commissioner Sims asked Mr. Garrett questions, so I'd like to hear Mr. Garrett.
Okay, I'm sorry, I missed it.
Well, I think you answered it, you know, as far as the two questions that Commissioner Schultz mentioned during the last meeting, and also, you know, the issue about the settlement agreement that is on the table that was discussed as well, whether that's a viable option. I think those are the three main topics for discussion. You know, after the Tuesday night or the Wednesday morning after the Tuesday night meeting where the citizens panel was established and I was asked to lead it, you know, I asked for the board's support to solicit this proposal from the Carl Vinson Institute. If you look at the resumes of the two people who were proposed to do this facilitation, I think you'll see that they bring a combination of expertise that isn't landfill, solid waste expertise. You know, we have engineers who did the corrective action plan for us, Smith Gardner, who we can call on for that. But this isn't a solid waste question. It's a solid waste finance, socioeconomic question. I mean, it's a community question. There's just a wide array of issues that not science and engineering in nature at all. And, for us to pick and choose an engineer to come in and talk to us, that's fine. And, engineers don't know everything in the world. I know that might strike y'all as odd for me to say that. But, there's a lot of other aspects to this that aren't engineering related. And I do think that the one facilitator is an attorney who has experience dealing with community issues that are technical in nature, but have ramifications far beyond that. The finances, in one sense, are the simplest part of this, really. I mean, the dollars and cents are pretty straightforward in a lot of ways. But, we do have the gentleman from Lamar County lined up to come in. He operates a program there. Lamar County operates a program there through the Solid Waste Authority that's had a lot of success. So from a business model standpoint, it's not a business, it's a government enterprise. So from that standpoint, I think he'd be a good resource. So I think that the facilitators do bring a certain amount of credibility to the process that if we're left with just an engineer, or actually I think myself included, there'd be 3 on the panel. Even 3 engineers may not come up with the right answer on their own. So I think this is really the avenue we need to proceed down.
Commissioner Schultz.
One last question. Payment for this would come out of the professional services budget, and we have money in the professional services budget to pay for this?
That's correct. We have the BOC professional services line item.
Commissioner Maddox.
We made this motion a month ago, and to seek community input with Mr. Garrett as a lead, and we voted 4-1 on that. I think we need to continue that support. And even if the 3 engineers and the rest of the citizens come back and they don't have the exact right answer, they may be able to inform us of some things we don't know today. In addition to that, I think it would be incredibly helpful, because after this process is complete, you've got 5 or 6 members of our community, plus I'm sure some articles in the media. I think that process will help to educate our community on the situation in front of us. It's obvious from the work session we had a month or so ago, this board hasn't really communicated where we're at and the challenges that we have. So I think we should approve this as is, and if the fees go over the $12,500, they should come back before us. If the board is ready, I'll make that motion.
So what's the motion then? To approve the document? Approve the contract? Okay. We got a motion and a second. So that's going to be. Any further discussion at this point on it? All in favor? It's 4-0. Now to me the only unfinished business is what is their charge? What is their duty? We're going to discuss this later. We're going to make sure we all come to consensus on it, because I think we got 2 different ideas that have developed.
I'll give my 2 cents since I was the lucky one to make that particular motion. Motion and the support of the board put this in the hands of Mr. Garrett for a review, a high-level review of our solid waste management model. I mean, to me, that's clear, but it's also clear that 3 or 4 meetings may not be sufficient. This gentleman from Lamar County is an excellent resource to bring in. They've got the model I think we should duplicate. There's a very diverse mix of rational citizens on this panel.
don't know if we need a motion. I wanted a consensus. I want to be sure that we are able to direct them. Anybody else want to give their view tonight? Commissioner Henderson, yes.
Mr. Chairman, I thought the objective was whether or not we were going to use this company to run our landfill. And as I listened to what we were talking about, I think since you exposed a little bit about executive session, I'm going to expose a little bit more. It is about the recycling centers, and it was about them coming back with recommendations whether or not we should keep the recycling center. And I can understand what that had to do with whether or not we want to prioritize our landfill and let this particular company run it. So I'm trying to figure out, are we going to put too much on this citizen review board or panel of people that we had hoped to be mostly Springer people, on them to come back with, I guess, answers that I thought had nothing to do with what we were trying to do. So I'm just trying to figure out what is their text? What do we want to do?
I think we owe it to them to make a target that they can aim for, and I'm afraid if we make it too broad, to make them successful or to get them in a position to better be successful, you got to make sure that target is clear for them. Commissioner Schultz.
Well, I think that we need to go back to the motion that was made, and let me just read the motion because it's in the minutes that we approved tonight. It says, the motion made by Commissioner Maddox, seconded by Commissioner Sims, to table the current landfill proposal by Green Hill to allow a minimum 60-day independent review free of conflicts to be led by the county manager. This review should also explore other options and opportunities for our solid waste management program. That's the motion that we voted on. That's what we charged the Citizens Committee to do. That's pretty clear.
Explain to me once again how does the landfill fit into it? I mean, how does the recycling center fit into it? Commissioner?
I'm just reading the motion that we approved, and that all of that is part of our solid waste management program.
Yes. Okay, so the motion that Commissioner Maddox made include the recycling center.
If you look at it from a macro view, from a 30,000 feet view, and you start talking about a solid waste management model, where you're at today and where you could be 10 years from now, there's things out there that as solid waste management, as the industry has matured, there's quite a few products and services and equipment out there that Eaton County doesn't have, has never even looked at. Commissioner Sims has had a great idea for at least 3 years. I've heard him talk about curbside service throughout the entire community. Why wouldn't we explore that? Why wouldn't we explore doing things differently out at the landfill? Why wouldn't we allow the citizens to better understand the legal situation? They need to bring in Mr. Craig one evening. I'm sure he'll show up. That's what the man does. Commissioner Sims, I think he just, regrettably, I was not able to go to Savannah. There's a gentleman down there who's a mayor, and he also works for a solid waste management company. He would love to show up at this panel, if I heard you right. He has volunteered to show up at this panel and to just have an open discussion about volumes coming from a neighboring community, and instead of hauling them somewhere else. And, there's a revenue issue, so there's a financial component. So that motion reads, they've got the ability to look at everything. It does not say they have to come back in 60 days. It says a minimum of 60 days. But the board also needs to understand, I know what's on Commissioner Sims' mind right now. We've got to figure something out because this program is running at a deficit. And whether that's a decal system, user fee, higher tipping rates, more volume, call it what you will, something's got to change. And I I committed to this to Mr. Middleton, the Honorable Mr. Middleton, 2 years ago. I'm not sure how can we pursue anything.
Commissioner Sims.
Well, thank the rest of the board. I guess I don't have too much to say. You guys kind of stolen some of the things I was thinking about saying, but you know, for going into my 5th year sitting up here on this board, from day one I've been concerned with landfill, recycling centers, just because it's an item in the red. You know, how can we make them at least get to a break even? You know, I don't know if we'll ever get to where we're in the black, but at least we can get to the break even. That's something I've always wanted to. I wanted this board to go after. You know, make sure we're using every dollar the citizens give us wisely. With that being said, this panel has a huge task ahead of it. With that being said, we were just down in Savannah, and Commissioner, you're right. I talked to several companies that I'm going to follow up on this week. Some recycling companies, some landfill companies, some curbside pickup companies. This has to be something not only this committee has to work on, the citizens have to work on it. Us as commissioners, we have resources that they don't have. They have resources that we may not have. We're going to have to work at this together. We got to get the community of Spring Hill involved, because they're going to be the ones mostly impacted by this. We have to get them involved. I have no problem with the 12-5 for consultation. My biggest gripe so far is having this. It seems like it's like trying to say world peace. I mean, that's how big this task is to me for this committee. It is so big that I don't want them to be unsuccessful at this. That's why I wanted a very obtainable goal that they can go in and come back 60, 90, 180 days and say, we did this. This is what this community wanted. You know, have something concrete that they achieved. I just don't want meeting after meeting. God knows we go through enough meetings to sometimes not get anything accomplished. I don't want to waste the citizens' time. These guys have volunteered their time, and I know my appointee, she has been all over the place, researching. I commend Ms. Brooker. She's on top of it. But she's putting in a full-time job just to serve on a couple hour a week or every other week committee. That's a lot. I think we're asking of the citizens. I think we need to do, and this goes back 2 weeks ago, I think we should have done a little bit more on our side before we got to this point. And it's not just this board. This is ask anybody in Spring Hill. This has been a 20-year, 30-year problem. This just didn't land in our plate last week. So, like I said, just going back, I'm okay with the consultant. I lean to, I guess, county manager. He had some specific points and I think some obtainable goals that this committee can achieve. And I know, like any other committee, they're going to get in there and they're going to have their 3 goals, and it's going to be conversation. It's going to be conversation about other things that's wrong with that solid waste, and that's fine. But I ask that committee to please, whatever we come up with tonight, try to tackle that first. And we all together, board, citizens, committee, need to work together to figure out how we're going to get our solid waste back into the black or back to break even. It's going to take all minds, not one and not five up here and not five on the citizens committee. Thank you.
I'll get you in just a second. I'm going to make a remark in respect of the District 5 Commissioner's motion. We did provide this for Langford, Holbrook, and he felt it was somewhat broad, and he was the one who originally asked us to narrow the target down. So maybe at this point we can get him to, it doesn't appear that we can come to a good consensus. We might go all night. My opinion would be that we ought to go to the contract that was on the table and start there. I thought we had that consideration in executive session the other day, but apparently I was under the wrong impression. And at this point, they're going to meet tomorrow. Maybe we can get some comments from the committee members that have already been working so hard at this point. Because I'm afraid that if we don't draw them in, we're going to help them be unsuccessful. And that's my biggest fear, that our indecision at this moment is going to create a problem down the road. So I think I ought to try to narrow this down without taking much more time. Is there any chance for a consensus tonight, or I'm going to move on? Commissioner, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Allow me to make my final comment. I think it's unfair, and this is my opinion. I think it's unfair to the citizens of the Spring Hill community to be asked to be asked to come back with us, if that being the case. We don't know what the case is right now. To say whether or not we're going to put stickers on those sacks and have the citizens of New County pay another tax. I don't think that's fair to ask to do that, especially since all they asked was, says we do not want a regional landfill. That's all they said. We don't want it. So we don't want it. And we asked them to go back and do more and more work that we easily do. This commission said we want to put a district tax on anything. We just raise our hand up, get guidance from the county attorney, and it becomes, somewhat of a law that we have to do it to a certain degree. And so to ask them to do tests, that's really our job, in my opinion. So all we should test this committee with, if we're going to ask them to do something, is whether or not they want a regional landfill in that community. And, which I'm prepared, myself personally, to vote no. Thank you.
The District 2 Commission.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We packed out this place 2 or 3 times for one reason. The proposal that was at stake. So I think first thing the committee needs to do is what the chairman said, is take a look at that proposal, up or down. We can add to their agenda, but they need to start somewhere. It's been 30 days. We've already wasted 30 days of their time. Let them start, and let that be the first thing they tackle. We can come back and add more to it. Please give them a starting place so they can get started. I think they've done a lot of research. They've spent a lot of time. Each committee member takes this committee seriously. So I don't think we need to delay them any further.
Do I get an amen from any of the commissioners at that point?
Amen.
I got 2. I got 1 amen there. I need a third. All right, we got it right there. Now, Commissioner Schultz, go ahead with your comment.
Well, I was just going to say, I think that that's exactly where we start. However, if we're going to spend $12,500 on a consultant, that doesn't need to be where we end.
But are we in agreement that's where they're going to begin? Yes. All right. Let's move on. Where are we at?